All right, it's time to talk basketball on the day after a really great World Series. We just got done talking some baseball. We talked a little football, but now it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, athletic director, and the host of Celtic Chalk Talk. Celtic Chalk Talk is a pod dedicated to the latest news and opinions surrounding the Boston Celtics from a lifelong fan, that being Steve. The pod will drop new episodes every Monday. But this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 24 minutes of NBA random thoughts online anywhere. This podcast was born out of the content of Steve's 13 Rules random NBA thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules random NBA thoughts article, where he shares his random thoughts after an exciting week number 2 of the 2025-26 NBA season. Steve, are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Shot clock has started. We'll start with the Cavaliers. Now, the Cavaliers started hot last season, then fizzled late. Might a slow start this season mean they're more focused for a late season run? What do you make of the Cavs?
It's an interesting situation. You go back to last year, they won their first 14 games. I don't think they've lost until late November or maybe early December. But anyway, this year they've had injuries. Darius Garland might be back soon, and Max Strus is still going to be out for a while. 2 starters they lost. And naturally, that's going to hurt them. However, if you watch the Cavs play, there's no spark they had last year. Donovan Mitchell's been struggling with injuries, but I've seen a few of their games this year, and it's just not the same as last year. Now, you begin to wonder, when a team loses like they did in the playoffs in an upset, as they did last year, you begin to wonder, did the players say, man, we put all our eggs in that one basket of having a great regular season and so on. It's just not important. And just get to the playoffs, try to be healthy, and we'll be okay. So that's the feel, and that's things I've picked up. But the problem isn't so much that. If you follow sports in your life, very rarely does a team just pick when they're going to play and when they're not. They need to get consistent in good habits. I don't know if the Cavaliers have that. The other night, Celtics, and Boston was winning by about 12 with about 2.5 left, maybe 14. But anyway, I was stunned when their coach, Atkinson, pulled everybody. He conceded. And he watched. And there's 2.5 minutes left. You got Donovan Mitchell, who's, when he gets rolling, he's good. And he can score, hit a couple threes and get you right there. And he's throwing in the towel. Something's not right here. And I see that they don't have that spark they had. There's something missing. I don't quite know what it is, but I do know it's not the same. And it's really interesting. The Cavaliers and the Knicks, which we'll talk about, but both of them are the co-favorites in the division. And if ever 2 co-favorites could be looked at as very vulnerable, this is a time. Now, it's a long season. They both can straighten out and figure it all out. But they're both not looking like the top team in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. That's one thing to think about. And maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe somebody will turn it up and all of a sudden figure it out. But that's where they are. Not very, it's alarming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to raise alarms, right, so early into the season, but it is telling, right, that things have to change. Either the Cavs are taking an approach that, listen, we got off to a great start and ran out of gas maybe at the end of the season. We're gonna flip that. So we're gonna start off slow, and we're gonna look to, again, we just talked baseball, right? Look at what the Dodgers did. They had they were good in the regular season, but they were primed. You saw how the way they treated Shohei Ohtani. They were primed for the World Series. Maybe that's what the Cavs are thinking. Only time will tell.
Injuries always figure into things in sports.
Sure.
And the Cavs with Garland's an all-star. He was an all-star. Is a very good player. And Strus is a guy. He's tough. He can shoot. He helps. He's your good 5th man to have. So maybe the injuries will get it together, help them get it together. And they got too much talent to be where they are right now. So something's got to give here, get better. and they've got to get better.
Yep. Speaking of getting better, I'm usually the segue guy, but you laid that out perfectly. The New York Knicks. Thibodeau's out, Brown is in, but it might take some time for Brown's new offense to kick in New York. What do you make of the Knicks and their start?
The feeling I got, or I get, is the Knicks didn't want Thibodeau because the hierarchy, meaning the general, Leon Rose, the general manager, the owner,
Right.
they didn't. Tibbs is not a guy who goes out of his way to talk to people and befriend people. And I don't think that went well with particularly the owner, Dolan. So that was the beginning. And I think they were always wanting to fire. But you got to sit back and think about something. He took that team from nothing.
Yeah.
And the team is, over a couple of years, they beat the Celtics, who were the favorite to get out of the East in the semifinals of the Eastern Conference. Now, that's way more than what was expected after the Celtics beat them all 4 times during the regular season. So he did a tremendous job with that team. How did he do it? He didn't use a bench, which I think ticked off a few people with the Knicks. And he played a lot of isolation ball. Jalen Brunson is great in isolation. Might be the best player in the league when you isolate. He gets to the paint and he can shoot. So they didn't like that. They hired Mike Brown with the belief that he would orchestrate or build an offense, more of a passing offense. Nobody holds the ball for more than a second or 2 or 3, and so on and so forth. All sounds good. I jokingly call that democratic basketball. However, when you think about it, why you had a team that got to the finals of the Eastern Conference, why would you want to change that?
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, if you watch the Knicks, which I've watched a few games, they fell behind against Milwaukee last week. They fell behind against the Bulls. That all nice, moving the ball and all is wonderful for 3 quarters. And they fell behind against the Heat. But all of a sudden, it's the 4th quarter, and the Knicks are down by 8, 10 points. They revert back. Brunson's got the ball. He's making things happen, either shooting it, most times shooting it, or kicking the ball out. So I don't know if they have they're totally sold on this. The more interesting thing that is really something that when I saw it, I was very surprised. Josh Hart, who was a heart and soul of the Knicks last year,
Sure.
he only played 15 minutes the other night against the Chicago Bulls. I look at Hart as somewhat of a leader on that team. You start pissing him off, you might have a little problem.
Yeah.
Don't think about Villanova connection with Hart, Bridges, and Brunson. They're tight.
Yeah.
And that's good. And now the last thing I'm going to say is when Karl Anthony Towns says, I don't know what my role is on the team, there's something not right.
Yeah.
They can fix it. And a couple wins, and I think they have 5 games straight now, home games. They can fix that. But there's just something not right that if this goes on longer, it could get a little ugly there.
Interesting. The reason they made the change, as I put on my New York Knicks fan hat on, is because they didn't make it to the finals. That's what the Knicks want. Today, they do play against the unbeaten Chicago Bulls, which we'll also talk about. So that'll be kind of an interesting game. Let's see. We've got to keep going, though, because you brought out another guy that I've not heard of. And again, I've said it before on this show that I love when you do that because this helps, which helps me for sure. But this isn't a rookie. This is a guy that's been around for a while, but he's having a breakout season. Introduce us to Ryan Rollins.
Ryan Rollins, fascinating. And there's so many guys that are 2nd-round picks that take a couple years and they can play. He was the 4th pick in the 2nd round by the Hawks in 22, which is interesting. They dealt him to Golden State. Golden State traded him to Washington in that Jordan Poole trade. He went to Washington. They waived him. The Bucks pick him up. Now it's interesting, and from what I understand, a lot of times in the Bucks practice, and a few people noticed it. I've heard this on the radio in one of the morning shows on the NBA. But anyway, they just said this. They went to preseason. They go around to all different teams. and they saw Ryan Rollins, who was the 15th guy. He was getting more attention from the assistant coaches after practice. And the realization was that doesn't go on. They must think something of him. On the last couple of games this year, better yet, he's averaging 18.6 going into last night's game and 5 assists.
Yeah.
In the game against Golden State, and this is what really got my attention, I think would get any fan's attention. In the game against Golden State, now Giannis doesn't play. Whatever, it's still load management thing. And this guy goes out, he gets 32, and he got 8 assists, and he led his team to a win over Golden State. Now, if you look at the Bucks, Giannis is got 1 foot out the door possibly, and he wants to go to the Knicks. The Bucks come up. They don't have much money. They don't have any money really to deal. They've got to organically find players and figure this out. Otherwise, they're going to lose their franchise because he's going to want out if they don't get better. They might have a perfect point guard to use for the future. So that's a piece. The other thing that if you look at the Bucks, Kyle Kuzma, who was probably considered the worst waste of money last year, has really rejuvenated himself and is playing good basketball. So the Bucks are starting to get some pieces. I don't think they're good enough to win it, but they're going to be a problem for a lot of teams in the playoffs. They Porter, who's a decent, another good point guard. And the Miles Turner, they got in free agency. So they've pieces. And what is it? Green is another, he's a shooter. So they've got some pieces. And if they utilize them correctly, they can be trouble. I forgot to mention even Bobby Portis. So there's talent. There's some talent. And it'll be interesting to see if they can figure this whole thing out.
Nice. And we mentioned the Cavs and the Knicks struggling off to a rough start. It's a great opportunity for the Bucks to make a little bit of noise.
I want to answer on that. I just want to say something to you. This is the kind of year in the East. I'm not going to say they're going to go out and beat the West in the finals, but there's about 7 or 8 teams you can see pulling it off. And that's not something that's usual if teams act together in time.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the best team in the West a little bit later on the show, so make sure to stay tuned. Great opportunity now to say if you're enjoying the show. Other people say this, so I'm going to say it. Please feel free to subscribe. All of that stuff matters to us. Let's keep moving. The NBA hot seat is already on and pointed at Willie Green of the Pelicans. I'm a big fan of Willie Green. I liked him as a player. I think he's done some good things with the Pelicans, but off to a rough start. What do you make of the Pelicans?
They're 0-5. They don't defend real well. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They're giving up over 123 a game. It's not a good situation. They do play hard. They just lost by 2 to the. They're not packing it in. But when you look at the team, and I would think it's like the land of misplaced toys, they got some talent. They got Jordan Poole. They got Murphy. They got Zion. It's not a bad start. And they got Herb Jones, a pretty good defender. So they've got big problems. They don't have big that really can take up the paint. They started DeAndre Jordan the other night. So they're struggling there. And they can use some stuff. The other interesting thing is, and I think it's going to come to a head, besides Willie Green being in trouble, because I think he is a new general manager is Joe Dumars. He's going to want his own person at some point. But bigger decision or bigger thing they have to sit down and think about is Zion. Zion out against Boston the other night, and he gets hurt very easily. They got to decide if you're gonna cast your dreams with Zion. I don't know if that's a good way to cast it because Zion, he's hurt, and if you get 60 games out of him, that's great. That means 22 games you're playing without your best player. So all of a sudden, what's the ceiling here? 40 wins on a great year, and so it seems like Dumars, who's new. And he made that crazy trade for Queen when he gave up first round pick on no lottery, nothing, was unattached. He can anywhere you want, wherever they finish, that's your pick. It seems like they got to make a lot of decisions here. And if they're going to sit and just do this, God, they're going nowhere fast.
Yeah, and speaking of going nowhere fast, it only gets worse for the Pelicans, the winless Pelicans against the lossless Thunder today. So let's see
Well,
how
that's
that plays out. Yeah,
be
that's
pretty.
rough. It's probably not going to be pretty. We talked about the Dodgers a little bit ago. Let's talk about the Lakers now, because it's what we do here. No LeBron, no Luka, no problem. You called out Austin Reeves. He played great with them out. He carried the load for the Lakers. You said he's got a payday coming. Is that going to
Well,
cause some problems for the Lakers?
I think the new ownership won't have a problem. But I think what will be the problem is I think LeBron, let's be honest, I don't think the Lakers will have any interest in bringing him back next year. I don't think they can trade him. He's got a no trade. So I don't think they can trade him because who's going to pony up the money to match the
Sure.
salary? So I don't think they can deal him. And maybe somebody like Cleveland, if they continue to struggle, might figure something out. One last, I bring him home. But that's a problem. Now, Reeves went off this week. He 51 against Sacramento. Just when they won. They lost against Portland, but he had 41. And then the other night against Minnesota, he had 28 and 16 assists. And he hit the buzzer beater to win the game, Minnesota. So he's done well. He's got an opt-out clause next year in his contract. I would expect him to opt out. I think the ownership will pay him, but now they're going to, him and Luka's money, I don't know how you're going to build a team.
Yeah.
Because it's Boston with Jaylen Brown and Tatum's money. And that's hard to build, to bring in pieces that can help you around that money. So it will be interesting. I think the owners will do it because I think Reeves, I'm not out there, you're out there, and I know you watch their games religiously because that's what Laker fans do. But I have to think he's becoming somewhat of a cult hero because
Oh, yeah.
he's a free agent, never drafted. Those are things that make it interesting for the Lakers to re-sign. Is there talk about that out in LA?
Right now, they're just enjoying what you're watching him play. It's a feel-good story. Like you said, this is a kid who wasn't drafted, who nobody really took any interest on, and then the Lakers took him, and they did something that the Lakers aren't known for doing. Took a guy, and they nurtured him, and they raised him as their own. Because the Lakers franchise generally will take those good players, get a little buzz behind him, and then trade him for bigger fish. But that's not what they did with Austin Reeves. There was a lot of pressure, right, to trade. You remember the last year, there was a lot of talk about moving him. But they didn't. They stuck with him, and now they're seeing a payoff. LeBron's off the books next year, so to your point, yeah, they could pay him no problem. I'm surprised that you said the Lakers aren't going to retain LeBron next year. I don't think there's any expectation of that, but do you think he's going to play another year?
It's a good question. I think the back issues making him think about it. Involved, he's going to get hurt a lot more easily. I guess if I had to guess, if there was a team out there that was going to offer him his $50 million, he'll do it.
Yeah.
But he's not going to come back and be humbled and take 10 million or 20 million. So that would be my way of thinking about it. But with him, and I think he's been humbled in a way that he's not running the franchise like he's run every franchise that he's played with. But I guess he would, but I think the place he'd probably go to would be Cleveland. I don't see other teams thinking it's worth it because it's a lot of money it cuts into your cap that he wants. I don't know how Cleveland could finagle it and get him on because Cleveland's going to be a second apron team pretty soon. My guess would be if somebody pays him the money he wants, he's not going to be embarrassed by taking 20 million.
Yep.
No. All I'm saying is that.
I think that's the rub, but I think whoever drafts his son Bryce is going to probably get a twofer and get LeBron, but he is going to have to accept taking less money. Let's see how it plays out. Very interesting that we're having that conversation. Shot clock is winding down. We got to go rapid fire here. Are the Chicago Bulls, the 5-0 Chicago Bulls, the undefeated Chicago Bulls, are they for real, or is this just an early season mirage?
I think it's a mirage, but I think it's fun to watch. He's a good offensive player that's really playing real well. And to think they didn't want to sign him and pay him. And they didn't pay him. They only paid him 25 or so, which isn't much in the market. Guys that are pretty good point guards. But also Matthew Purciello is he's getting better every game. And they say he loves to play and he listens, he wants to get better. And you also have Vukovic, who's playing real well. And one other thing that doesn't get mentioned, but he's a Hall of Fame coach, Billy Donovan. He does a good job. He gets, and the thing that's good about him, but he would have been a perfect candidate for the Knicks, but he takes the talent he's got and he changes or coaches accordingly. And by that, I mean, with this Bull team, he's got a good point guard, get the ball in his hands and move it and run. And don't forget, Kobe White has been out for since the start of the season. He hasn't played yet. And he's a real good offensive player. So that's going to help him. Now, the other interesting thing, the other night against the Knicks, they won. He used 4 guys off the bench. Now, think about this. They combined for 53 points. It's almost half of your total offense coming off your bench. So what's exciting to you is that the Bulls don't have a superstar, but they've got a bunch of guys that can get you on any night. And I guess good. The problem with that is if you have a star, he's getting it every night. You might have a couple of nights where nobody's getting it, and then you got a problem. So
Yeah, outstanding. Really good to see that start in Chicago. Let's hope it lasts a little longer. But like I said, they've got a tough matchup against the Knicks today. Talking about another team that's off to a great start, also undefeated, the defending champs are off to a great start. Without one of their big 3, I asked tongue in cheek, but I'm going to ask anyway, can they go 82-0?
No, I don't think so. But I think what's interesting about them is they won it, and every game is still important second year.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because a lot of teams, when they win it, they kind of mentally, like the Cavaliers who didn't win it, thinking just about the playoffs. Yeah. And this team isn't. Jalen Williams is out. Jalen Williams, for those that don't realize, he was all NBA last year. He was an all-star. Yeah. And they're playing without him. And they're going out, and they're winning some close games in double overtime and so on. But they're winning games. And they don't have, they're really, I would say, better than Holmgren, their number 2 guy. It says a lot about them. And unless something silly happens, and by that injury or something, I don't see anybody. I just think they're a notch or 2 above every team in the NBA. And the Western Conference is good, but it's the better conference. But people were picking Denver before the year. It sounds nice and it looks good. Jokic is great. Yeah. But I can't see anybody beating them. What about you? You think anybody can beat
No, come on. They don't have a weakness. They've been to the top of the mountain. They're the defending champs. The only thing that's going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder is really one of 2 things. Unfortunately, injuries, of course, because that's always looming, but lightning in a bottle. Okay. So a team just gets super hot. Think Villanova versus Georgetown. Am I remembering right? Right? When they just shot lights out and David defeated Goliath. It happens. But that's it.
You have to do it 4 times, though.
That's the thing. It's not a one and done. Yeah, you've got to. Again, it's lightning in a bottle 4 times, it's next to impossible. This team is that good, and it's scary to think that they're doing it without one of their best players. Unreal. But that is why we watch sports. That's why we enjoy it, because you just don't know how things are going to play out. That's it. You heard our buzzer go off. That's probably about as close to meeting the shot clock as we've ever gotten, which is cool. But thank you, as always, for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We'll link it wherever you are watching or listening to this show today. And of course, please subscribe, follow. It means a lot to us. All of that does, and we're grateful for all of it. Thank you again. Join us next week for more Random NBA Thoughts as we recap week number 3. We'll talk then, Steve. Hold on a second. Oh, there we go.